Have you ever been watching something like the Olympics and you swear you saw the exact same flag for two totally different countries? Well, you're not going crazy, it's a real thing, and today we're going to unravel exactly why some national flags look so incredibly, confusingly similar.
All right, let's just dive right in with a classic example, Romania and Chad. You see it, right? A vertical tricolor of blue, yellow, and red. I mean, they are practically indistinguishable. So, what's the deal? Is this just a massive coincidence, or is there a bigger story here?
And hey, it doesn't stop there. Check out this pair, Indonesia and Monaco. Both are just simple red and white horizontal stripes. Now, the only real difference is their dimensions, which, let's be honest, you would never, ever notice just by looking at them. This kind of thing pops up way more often than you might think.
Now, when we see stuff like this, our brains immediately try to find a simple explanation. Did one country just straight up copy the other? Are they in some kind of secret political alliance? Or maybe it was all just a huge mistake. These are the kinds of assumptions we all make, and, well, they're pretty much all wrong.
And look, those assumptions are totally understandable, but the real reasons behind these lookalike flags are actually way more interesting. They tell a fascinating story about history, about culture, and even just the simple logic of good design.
To really get it, we have to start with the most basic idea of what a national flag even is. And the number one thing you've got to remember is this: flags are symbols, they are not trademarks.
A national flag, at its core, is a symbol. It represents the country's identity, its history, its values. What it is not is some kind of legally binding trademark that you register at a global office. There's just no international flag police out there making sure every design is unique.
And because flags are about symbolism, not law, any nation on Earth is free to design its own however it wants. And since so many countries pull from the same powerful pool of shared symbols and colors, these overlaps, they're basically guaranteed to happen.
So this leads us straight to the logic of why they're so similar. It turns out that in the world of flags, having these shared symbols isn't the exception at all. It's actually the rule. And this happens for three main reasons. First up, shared historical origins. Just take a look at the flag of Gran Colombia. It was a former state in South America with this really iconic yellow, blue, and red design. Well, when it dissolved back in 1830, the new nations that formed, Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela, all adopted flags that were direct descendants of that original as a way to signal their shared history.
The second reason is shared ideology and culture. Certain color combinations just carry an incredible amount of meaning. Think about the Pan-African colors: red for the bloodshed for freedom, gold for wealth, and green for the land. You see them in the flags of Ghana, Senegal, and Guinea. Or the Pan-Slavic colors of red, white, and blue, used by countries like Russia, Serbia, and Slovenia. These aren't copies of each other. They're powerful expressions of a shared cultural identity.
And the third reason? It comes down to practical design constraints. Vexillology, which is the fancy word for the study of flags, has some basic rules. A good flag needs to be simple, it needs to be easy to recognize, and it has to be visible from far away. Well, that naturally pushes designers towards simple stuff, like stripes and basic shapes. And frankly, there are only so many ways you can combine a few colors before you start repeating yourself. So as you can see, this all really boils down to two main paths that lead to a similar-looking flag. One is totally on purpose, and the other is pure random coincidence.
Let's break that down. On one side, you have what we call deliberate reference. This is your Colombia and Ecuador situation, where a country wants you to see that connection. It's an intentional nod to a shared past. But on the other side, you have just plain coincidence, and that brings us back to Romania and Chad, where two nations, completely independently, just happen to land on the same simple, powerful design.
Okay, so this all leads to a really practical question. If all these flags are so similar, does it actually cause any real-world problems? I mean, does this visual confusion actually matter?
This really lays it all out. Sure, in our day-to-day lives, like in the news or at a sporting event, it can definitely cause some minor confusion or mix-ups. But when you look at the things that actually define a country, things like international law or its national sovereignty, the impact is zero. Absolutely.
So just to be crystal clear, let's ask it directly. What exactly isn't affected when two countries have a flag that looks the same?
The answer is pretty simple. Everything that truly matters. A country's sovereignty, its recognition by other nations, its official legal status, and even its physical borders have absolutely nothing to do with what its flag looks like.
So here's the bottom line, the most important takeaway from all of this. Symbols repeat themselves all the time. But the states, the actual countries, remain completely distinct. A flag is an expression of a nation's identity. It's not the source of it.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If flags are these powerful symbols that tell shared stories, it makes you wonder, what other symbols are out there in our world? Everything from company logos to our own cultural traditions that we might be misreading just because we assume they're totally unique when they're really part of a much bigger shared language.